The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days straight. Puddles swallowed the sidewalks, and the city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red on the wet asphalt. Somewhere beneath an old bridge, a man named Daniel Rivers sat shivering, wrapped in a torn blanket that barely clung to life. He wasn't always homeless. There was a time when Daniel had a job, an apartment, even a fiancée, but life, in its cruelest form, had stripped him bare. A factory accident had left him injured, unable to work for months. The medical bills piled up. His company replaced him, and when he couldn't pay rent, his landlord did what landlords do, threw his things out into the street. By the time he healed, there was nothing left to go back to. Now, Daniel wandered from alley to alley, dumpster to dumpster, clutching his old backpack like it contained his soul. Inside was a small photograph, his mother, smiling before she passed away. Whenever he looked at it, he whispered, "I'm still trying, Mom. I'm still trying." One cold morning, Daniel woke up to the sound of hurried footsteps. Office workers rushed past him, too busy to look down. He watched them, their coffee cups steaming in the crisp air, their shoes spotless and purposeful. He wished for just one day when someone would see him, not as a nuisance, not as a failure, but as a human being. That moment came in the most unexpected way. As Daniel shuffled toward a nearby convenience store dumpster in search of discarded food, something caught his eye, a black leather wallet, half buried in a pile of wet paper. He froze. He looked around, no one nearby. Carefully, he picked it up. It was heavy. Inside were credit cards, a driver's license, and a thick wad of $100 bills. Daniel's heart pounded. He hadn't held that much money in years. He opened the ID window. Michael Donovan. It read, a photo of a smiling man in a sharp suit stared back at him. For a long time, Daniel just stood there, his breath fogging the air. He imagined what that money could do. A warm meal, a shower, maybe even a cheap motel bed for a week. Just one break from the endless cold. But then he remembered his mother's voice. "Daniel," she used to say, "you don't do the right thing because it's easy. You do it because it's right." He sighed, clutching the wallet. He could almost feel her hand on his shoulder. So he made a decision, one that would change everything. Daniel walked for nearly an hour until he found the address listed on the driver's license. It was a towering glass building downtown, the kind where men like Michael Donovan worked, men with success written all over their faces. He pushed through the revolving doors. The lobby was gleaming marble and gold trim. The security guard frowned immediately. "Sir, you can't be in here." I found this," Daniel stammered, holding up the wallet. "I think it belongs to someone who works here." "Michael Donovan?" The guard hesitated, then called upstairs. Moments later, an elevator opened. A tall man in a tailored suit stepped out, the same face from the ID. Michael looked at Daniel, eyes narrowing, then at the wallet. "You found this?" he asked skeptically. Daniel nodded. It was on the street near 7th Avenue. Michael opened it, flipping to the contents. "Everything's here. Cash cards." He looked up, almost suspicious. "Why'd you bring it back?" Daniel shrugged weakly. "Because it's yours." Michael studied him for a moment, then smirked. "You could have just taken the money. Most people would have." Daniel gave a faint smile. "Maybe, but I'm not most people." Michael chuckled under his breath. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a single $20 bill, and extended it toward Daniel. "Here, for your honesty." Daniel froze. $20. After all that walking, all that temptation, all that hope, that was it? But he took it, quietly nodding. "Thank you, sir." Michael turned and disappeared into the elevator, the doors sliding shut. Daniel stood there for a long while before walking back into the rain. He whispered to himself, "I did the right thing, right?" Days passed. The $20 bought him 2 sandwiches and a cheap blanket. Life went on as harsh as before. But what Daniel didn't know was that his single act of honesty was about to echo in ways he couldn't imagine. Because upstairs, in that glass building, Michael Donovan couldn't stop thinking about the homeless man who had returned his wallet. He'd been having a bad week, a lawsuit, a divorce. people around him chasing money like it was oxygen. And yet here was a man who had nothing and still chose integrity. That night, Michael opened his journal. He wrote, "Sometimes the poorest man teaches the richest what wealth truly means." The next morning, Michael called his assistant. "Find that man," he said, "the one who returned my wallet." But it wasn't easy. Homeless people rarely left traces. No address, no phone number, no record. Michael even offered a cash reward for anyone who'd seen Daniel near the 7th Avenue Bridge. Weeks passed, nothing, until one cold evening. Daniel was sitting by the train station, trying to stay warm with an empty coffee cup in front of him, when a police car stopped nearby. A young officer approached. "Are you Daniel Rivers?" he asked. Daniel's heart skipped. Yeah. Why?" The officer smiled faintly. "Someone's looking for you." Daniel was driven downtown, nervous and confused. When the car stopped, he realized where they were, the same gleaming building. Michael Donovan was waiting by the entrance. "Daniel," he said warmly, walking forward. "I've been searching for you." Daniel frowned. "Why?" Michael grinned. "Because I owe you an apology and an opportunity." He led Daniel inside. The security guard looked stunned this time, the same man he'd thrown out days ago. Michael gestured to an office. "Come, sit." The chair was soft, the coffee hot. Daniel didn't remember the last time anyone treated him like a person. Michael leaned forward. "You could have taken everything from that wallet, but you didn't. You reminded me that there's still good in this city, and I need people like that." He reached into a drawer and slid an envelope across the table. Inside is a job offer. Janitorial work here at the firm. Starting tomorrow, if you'll take it. Daniel stared at him, speechless. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Michael smiled. "Everyone deserves a second chance." For the first time in years, Daniel walked out of that building with a sense of purpose. The next day, he showed up at 7 a.m. sharp. He was given a uniform, a small locker, and a badge that read Rivers, D. He worked harder than anyone. He cleaned floors, emptied trash bins, polished windows, all with quiet gratitude. People began noticing him. His humbleness, his patience, the way he always smiled even when others ignored him. But not everyone liked him. One man in particular, Bradley Tate, an arrogant junior executive, despised him. Bradley had clawed his way up the corporate ladder, stepping on anyone who got in his way. Seeing Michael praise a janitor infuriated him. One night, when Daniel stayed late cleaning, Bradley walked by, sneering. "Still pretending to be a saint, huh?" he said. "Don't think just because Mr. Donovan took pity on you, you belong here." Daniel didn't respond. He just smiled faintly and continued mopping. Bradley leaned closer. "You're still trash, Rivers. Don't forget that." And with that, he walked away, but not before slipping a company flash drive into Daniel's cleaning cart. The next morning, chaos erupted. Confidential files had been leaked. Internal emails, client records, all over the news. Someone had stolen data, and the trace led to Daniel's ID badge. Security dragged him from the janitor's closet. Michael stared at him in disbelief. "Daniel, tell me you didn't." "I didn't." Daniel pleaded. "I swear, Mr. Donovan, I've never even used a computer." But the evidence was damning. The flash drive was found in his cart. The login time matched his shift. And Bradley, standing in the corner, watched with quiet satisfaction. "I trusted you," Michael said, his voice breaking. "Get him out of my building." Daniel was thrown back into the cold. The same street, the same rain, only this time with a heart heavier than ever. Weeks passed. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. His only thought, how could I lose everything again after doing everything right? Then, one night, fate intervened again. Daniel was walking by an alley when he saw two men arguing. One of them was Bradley, the other a shady tech broker. They were fighting over money. "You said you'd pay me more for those files," the broker shouted. Bradley hissed, "You got your share. I'm not paying a cent more." The man pulled out his phone. "Maybe I should tell your boss who really stole the data." Before he could dial, Bradley lunged, shoving him against the wall. The man's phone flew out his hand, landing near Daniel's feet. Daniel picked it up, hesitating. The screen was cracked but still lit, and right there in the messages were screenshots of Bradley's confession. Proof. Bradley froze when he saw Daniel. What are you doing here?" Daniel looked at him with quiet fury. "Finishing what you started." He ran, as fast as his legs would carry him, to the nearest police station. Hours later, Bradley was in handcuffs. The truth came out. The stolen data had been his doing all along, a scheme to sell corporate secrets to a rival firm. When Michael learned the truth, he didn't hesitate. He personally found Daniel again, sitting by the same bridge where they first met. "I owe you another apology," Michael said, his voice trembling. "You didn't just return a wallet. You saved my company." Daniel smiled faintly. "I didn't do it for that. I just wanted to clear my name." Michael reached into his coat, pulling out another envelope, this one thicker. "This time, it's not a job. It's partnership. You're going to help me run a new division. A foundation that gives second chances to people who need them." Daniel's eyes widened. "You mean—" "Yes," Michael said softly. "A shelter, funded by the company, run by you." Months later, the Rivers Foundation for Hope opened its doors, a warm, brightly lit shelter offering food, beds, and training for the homeless. Daniel stood at the entrance, wearing a clean suit for first time in years, greeting people with the same quiet kindness that once kept him alive. When reporters asked him what inspired it, he said, "A wallet, and a man who gave me faith that good deeds still matter." But life, as always, had one last twist. One evening, after the ribbon-cutting ceremony, a young woman approached him. She looked nervous, holding something wrapped in cloth. "Mr. Rivers?" she said softly. "My name's Lily. You don't know me, but the man you helped, Michael Donovan, was my father." Daniel blinked. Tears welled in her eyes. "He passed away last week. Heart attack. But before he died, he left me this." She handed him the wrapped object. Inside was the same black leather wallet. A note was tucked inside. "Daniel, you once returned this to me when you had nothing. Now, I return it to you, filled with something you'll never lose: faith in people. Thank you for reminding me what integrity means." Michael. Daniel stood there silently, eyes glistening. For once, he didn't feel homeless. He felt home. That night, Daniel locked up the shelter, stepped outside, and looked at the stars. He whispered, "Mom, I think I finally made you proud." But as he turned to leave, he noticed something strange. A small boy, about 10 years old, huddled near the corner, clutching a torn backpack. Daniel knelt beside him. "Hey, you okay?" The boy looked up, shivering. "I lost my bag. Someone took it." Daniel smiled softly and reached into his coat. "Then I guess it's my turn to help." He handed the boy a warm blanket and guided him inside. The shelter's lights glowed behind them, bright against the dark city. And in that moment, you could almost feel the circle of kindness complete itself, one act rippling endlessly forward. Some people think miracles come in grand moments, but sometimes they come disguised as a homeless man returning a wallet in the rain. Speech balloon, what would you have done if you found that wallet? Would you have returned it or kept it? Tell us in the comments. Your thoughts might inspire someone's conscience tonight. And remember, sometimes the smallest act of honesty can rewrite an entire life.